referencing an article by Guy and Heidi Burgess. The AI program Perplexity came up with a really decent definition of civility for use this morning. Civility in relation to democracy is the practice of engaging with others as fellow citizens in ways that uphold respect, dignity, and mutual understanding, even when disagreements arise. As Olive was saying, civility is not simply politeness or the absence of conflict, but refers to behaviors and attitudes that foster constructive dialogue, recognize the equal moral standing of all participants, and contribute to the well-being and functioning of society. The founders of the United States highly valued civil discourse and saw it as essential to good government and a functioning republic. They believed the new American republic could only succeed if people engaged in open, reasoned debate and respected differing opinions. Alexander Hamilton, in Federalist Paper number one, emphasized serious debate with respect for others' views, good faith assumptions about opposing opinions, and avoiding demonization of those with different beliefs. Thomas Jefferson said, difference of opinion leads to inquiry, and inquiry to truth. He also believed that healing party divisions and restoring harmony among citizens was the greatest good for the country. John Adams, these two people sympathetic to Unitarianism, John Adams expressed dread of division into parties as the greatest political evil under the Constitution, warning that abuse of words was the great instrument of faction and division in society. One of our greatest recent proponents of civility in democracy was President Obama. Across many speeches and forums, Obama underscored and continues to underscore the importance of mutual respect, listening, and healthy debate in maintaining a vibrant democracy, even when facing fundamental disagreements. Let us remember how Obama responded to the assault on civility in January of 2011, when Representative Gabby Gifford was shot in the head and 6 others lost their lives as she was meeting in public with constituents to learn about their concerns to bring back to Washington the image of civil democracy. Here are some of the words Obama said at that memorial that could be what could have been an extremely polarizing event. You see, when a tragedy like this strikes, it is part of our nature to demand explanations, to try and pose some order on the chaos and make sense out of that which seems senseless. But at a time when our discourse has become so sharply polarized, at a time when we are far too eager to lay the blame for all that ails the world at the feet of those who happen to think differently than we do, it's important for us to pause for a moment and make sure that we're talking with each other in a way that heals rather than in a way that wounds. For the truth is, none of us can know exactly what triggered this vicious attack. None of us can know with any certainty what might have stopped these shots from being fired, or what thoughts lurked in the inner recesses of a violent man's mind. We should be civil because we want to live up to the example of public servants like John Roll and Gabby Giffords, who knew first and foremost that we are all Americans and that we can question each other's ideas without question each other's love of country, and that our task, working together, is to constantly widen the circle of our concern so that we bequeath the American dream to future generations. Isn't it nice to hear what a president ought to sound like when confronting a national tragedy? Compare Obama's words to President Trump's response to the murder of Charlie Kirk in the reading that you just heard about hating your enemies. Kirk died by the bullet of a lone assassin, too, with yet undisclosed motives. Trump and Kirk were good friends. Trump credited Kirk for turning out Republican youth to vote for him, possibly one of the decisive factors in this election. Kirk has been raised as an example of democratic ideals by debating opponents on college campuses. I watched a video of him at Cambridge University debating students last spring that was quite educational. I would agree that he was civil and respectful in his argumentative style, but the content of his arguments veered far away from supporting the value of civil democracy, leaning into racist, theocratic, and sexist beliefs right out of the 1950s, rejecting a pluralistic, multi-faith society. And that is what we are hearing from Trump, too, from the beginning of his campaign in 2015. Donald Trump's first and second presidency and campaigns have been widely identified by political scientists, legal experts, and civil rights groups as periods in which civil discourse suffered repeated attacks, resulting in increased polarization, normalization of aggression, and erosion of democratic norms. His speeches and social media posts often demonize political opponents, the media, and minorities, employing terms that dehumanized and threatened adversaries. During his second presidency, Trump's use of violent and hostile language has surged. He increasingly uses all or nothing terms, attacking opponents as evil, demonic, and even vermin, and issued threats against civil society and political adversaries. Trump is a masterful manipulator of the news media and social media that feeds on division and conflict, magnified, unfortunately, by foreign manipulators who happily undermine civil democracy. Trump's campaigns and presidencies are marked by systematic assaults on the press and press free speech. He frequently denounces fake news, threatens legal actions against journalists and news organizations, and promotes the idea that certain media groups should be illegal. Trump's rhetoric normalized the idea of righteous political violence, valorizing supporters' aggression against opponents, with documented increases in violence targeting those he singled out. Trump's now using federal power to target political adversaries and civil society organizations, including educational institutions, legal advocacy groups, and nonprofits. He dismantled established Justice Department independence and used executive action to target investigations against opponents. I doubt I need to say much more about Trump's complete lack of respect for civility. Why? Because Trump is intoxicated with maximizing personal power. Trump's second presidency has shifted to frequent first-person pronouns, presenting himself as a singular hero or near divine figure, at times likening himself to a king claiming divine legitimacy. His rallies began featuring monarchical imagery and explicit comparisons. He is always the only genius in the room and demands to be surrounded by loyal sycophants constantly praising him. The result, as I think we're all painfully aware, is the loss of faith in democracy by over half the citizens in this so far still United States. That loss of faith is a victory for the authoritarian rule Trump and his dictator buddies around the world prefer to get what they want for their side. That lack of faith may partly come from lack of awareness of an experience with over 10,000 organizations around this nation supporting civility in society. Unlike the vitriol one might find in the hostile corners of social media or the web, most people really do want to get along with their neighbors, even if they find they have strong disagreements with them. They want to find common ground where they can agree, knowing that there are precious few human beings with whom they'll find 100% agreement. What's missing for them is a forum where they can feel safe and secure to meet those unknown, threatening others, and a social technology that allows them to meet and get to know each other for the purpose of finding common ground beyond their differences. One such organization that I'd like to bring before you and to bring to your attention today is Braver Angels. Braver Angels was founded in 2016 after the election of Trump to his first term as president. They were originally called Better Angels, inspired by Abraham Lincoln's plea for national unity at the end of his first inaugural address. We must not be enemies. The mystic chords of memory will yet swell the chorus of the Union when touched again, as surely as they will be by the better angels of our nature. In their purpose, they envision an America with respectful embrace of political disagreements, where civic friendship flourishes and competing perspectives strengthen our nation. Strengthen our nation. They embrace the values of respect, humility, honesty, and responsible citizenship. Their goal is not to change people's views of issues, but to change their views of each other, In their approach as individuals, they listen to understand, the other side's point of view without the need to argue or disagree. In braver angel communities, the purpose of listening to understand is to seek common ground and ways to work together for common goals. When engaging in politics, they bring their principles to the table to bring people together rather than to divide them. Toward that end, they follow the braver angel's rule. We're guided by the rule that red and blue, liberals, conservatives, leaders are equally represented at every level of organizational guidance. Our members range from working class to affluent and come from many backgrounds. Our constant striving is to be an organization reflective of the country we seek to serve. I've attended several of their events in the past year, and I also attended a few when they were first founded, as they had a couple of strong chapters up in the Albany Capital Region. What has moved me about these events I have attended is the balanced representation of red and blue. I don't get many opportunities in my circles that I run in to hear reds speaking for themselves rather than hearing MAGA propaganda in the media and coming from the White House and Congress. What I appreciate is hearing the diversity of views from both sides. What I find powerful is hearing people telling personal stories that support their perspectives. And what I also find helpful is hearing criticisms of their own side and their leaders, and a lack of dogmatic acceptance of what we get from the media. It is always refreshing to hear how people come to their views and what might change them. All the listening serves the goal of humanizing the other to undermine any enemy view. One event I attended, I heard something surprising from one conservative fellow. He told us he reads much of the legislation carefully and forms his own opinions about what is in each bill, rather than listening to some talking heads on Fox News told him to think about it. What raised my respect for him a great deal. I'm sure we would disagree about many things, but his devotion to finding the truth of what is actually in the bill is admirable. They are not the only group supporting civil conversation. After Kirk's murder, in just 36 hours, Braver Angels put together a 2-hour Zoom event that had 1,400 people attending. They organized 3 panel discussions with representatives of over a dozen groups, many I'd never heard of before. It was inspiring to hear about the work of these different organizations and the mutual purpose shared by all of them to support civil society and avoid violence, to resolve our differences. What Braver Angels and all these groups are doing has great synergy with Unitarian Universalism. We have been striving to make peace with each other over our many differences for many years. I've watched it. We've always strived to draw our circle wider, to include greater and greater diversity and differences. Rather than shared beliefs or unbelief, we center ourselves first and foremost around love, and then include justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. We covenant together to create the boundaries of how we will be in community together. We build a caring community for mutual support, with lots of room for individual freedom. We aspire to be inclusive of a wide spectrum of humanity that Braver Angels seeks to attract to. We too seek understanding to find common ground. And in some ways, I think they're doing a better job of it than we are. I'm pleased to let you know I'm working with a local chapter of the Braver Angels here in New York City to host their newly appointed executive director, Mari Giles, to speak here Tuesday, October 28th. I hope you can come. I hope you will agree that Braver Angels is the kind of organization that we want to align with and support in these polarizing times to encourage civility. Whether through Braver Angels or other civic organizations, may we step up and support, as Rauschenbusch from Interfaith Alliance challenged us in the opening words, may we step up and support the critical importance of civility in these troubling times. So be it.